Hi, I'm back at the cemetery. I'm in one of the older sections in the cemetery that I'm going to be buried in. This section has a lot of graves that were made in the 1800s. And I know this is kind of a morbid thing to talk about, but one reason I decided to plan and pay for my funeral in advance and also my gravestone is because that's one of the last things in our lives that we can actually have some control over. Um, I think for me, it made me feel a sense of relief to know that I chose things related to my funeral that were in line with my faith and um, things that I wanted my children and grandchildren to experience. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the reasons why I chose to do that. Um, One of the reasons is because when we think about the experience of death and funeral and dying, those things make a lasting impression on the people that we leave behind. Now, if this is something you don't care about, that is perfectly okay. If you're fine with, you know, you just don't care about it and you want your family to handle it. But my thoughts are that after having gone through, all of my grandparents are passed away and my parents are both passed away, and having experienced that, I think to me, it matters. It matters after having gone through planning multiple funerals, and I even did the funeral service for most of my family members. Um, I think, as a therapist, that those things leave a very lasting impression. Those things leave imprints on the brain. How your family experiences your funeral, how they experience seeing your body or your remains, those things all matter. So for me, I'm thinking ahead and thinking, what do I want my children and grandchildren to experience? And I want them to have a positive experience. And most of all, I don't want them to have to worry about, when they're grieving the loss of the support that I provided in their life. I don't want them to have to think about what color coffin I'm going to be in, or where they're going to bury me, or, how much is this going to cost? How are we going to get funds together? All of those things. Being taken care of, I think will be a huge blessing to them to just be able to grieve and not have to worry about it. So I went to my local funeral home. I met with them. I picked a package that I felt was appropriate. I personally decided to be cremated because I know that there are certain images that imprint on the brain from seeing a body, and I personally chose that because I want them to be stuck with lasting images of me when I'm like this, animated and alive. I don't want them stuck with images of my dead body in their mind. So, no judgment to anyone who chooses differently. That's just the reason I made that personal choice. And these are things that's important to think about, if you even have a preference, and thinking about, impacting the mental health of the people that you leave behind. Um, then I, a few years after that, I went and planned my funeral, paid for it in advance. Found out that those things are transferable should the funeral home close. There's a certain type of insurance that's on that, so that the funeral will take place somewhere else if something happens to the funeral home. They were very good in working with me. And then just last year, I decided that I wanted to go ahead and purchase my stone, my headstone. I wanted to pick that out as well, and I'm really happy with what I chose. So what they did for me was they just go ahead and you work with a designer, you design your stone. They imported the stone and then you have it placed, and they basically just engrave everything on it except your death date, and then you will have that engraved after you pass. And I know there's a lot of other people that do this in advance as well. A lot of times people with their spouse will pick their stone and have their name engraved and then have the death date done later. So I do walk around this cemetery. It's peaceful, and there are quite a few stones for people who have not yet died. So I'm certainly not the only one who made this choice. But I do think it's just something worth thinking about, and something that can be a huge benefit to those people that, would have to be dealing with these things. There's a lot of value in, also just the peace I feel and the peace that I have of making these decisions ahead of time. I do recommend planning in advance, picking what you want to happen, during that time. And I feel like that gives me more peace going forward, to just have this taken care of. And I know not everyone is in a position to be able to take care of this in advance, but if you have the opportunity and you don't have the funds to take care of it, at the very least, you can go through and write down what your final wishes are and make sure you leave it with a person who you trust, whoever's going to be taking care of your estate when you pass. So I do have more things I want to talk about related to this, so I'll save it for another video. But thanks for tuning in.